Welcome to Subject to Blackout. My name is Timo, and with me, as always, from the Name Taken podcast is Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Good, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. This week, we decided to dive back into the Criterion collection and sort of go back to this podcast's roots. This is the 26th mainline episode of Subject to Blackout, and we're revisiting Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan.
We did Rush Hour 1 and 2 early on, and now we're going back to 1985 to revisit a Criterion classic, a Hong Kong Kung Fu classic, Police Story. Mike, this was your idea. You want to tell us a little bit about Police Story?
Police Story, it's like Jackie Chan's breakout movie where he demonstrates he's like an action star. And also like kind of an actor. I have a personal connection to Police Story 2. During my time, during my time as a voice actor.
In China,
I was given a role in Police Story 2 for the English dub. I was not Jackie Chan. I was one of the guys who sends a bunch of other people to go kill Jackie Chan. Like, go bring me Jackie Chan.
Bring me Jackie's head.
And none of them succeed.
No way.
So I was that guy, which is actually way more fun than being Jackie Chan.
Yeah, probably.
But that's not the official English dub. Like, so Criterion has both Police Story and Police Story 2. And I did check because it was like, shit, is that my performance, my interpretation of Police Story 2? It's not.
It flowed out of you. It wasn't even an interpretation. It was just you were a possession.
It was a becoming of Police Story 2. I became the person who sent a bunch of other goons to take out Jackie Chan.
Goon number 7.
No, so fortunately that one seems to be more professionally done. I think the version that we did ended up like being played in Uganda as part of like Chinese soft power. But anyway.
Awesome.
Oops. Great money for just sitting in a room and being like, bring me Jackie Chan.
One more time, but could you say Jackie Chan more emphatically?
Exactly. I sure can. And you did a lot of reacting to stuff. It was like,
Jackie.
So I have a lot of familiarity with the Police Story franchise that way. So the first one's from 1985. That's the one we watched. The second one's from like 1989.
88 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sort of incorporates something that became more and more prominent in Hong Kong movies of that era, where it's like the bad guy's a white guy. So it's not the case for this one. This one's just like triads, but the later ones would be like that white British guys fucking everything up. So anyway, going back to the roots, Police Story, which is like the great movie, like iconic central movie to Hong Kong cinema. So if you need an entryway into Hong Kong cinema and you've already seen Chungking Express, you already know who Wong Kar-wai is, then you go to the action side of Hong Kong cinema and you do Police Story.
Yeah, I don't know anything about any of that other stuff, but I gotta say that I really loved this movie.
It
was
great.
Really
it has everything.
Great. So here's like today, literally at my 9 to 5er, I recommended it to two people. I was like, "Yo, it's on HBO Max too, not just Criterion." And I can't recommend this enough. If you like Jackie Chan movies that you've seen him do with, I don't know, Chris Tucker, and you liked those, this is that with stunts that make you go, ow.
There's a lot of times in this where like, we're like, wow, that guy's probably really hurt. There are like lot of stuntmen who like definitely were like, you see like a guy blown off like the second floor of a building.
And it's a real building. So he's hitting a street.
You see him hit the ground. You're like, there was no padding.
And he lands like on his neck. And you're like, oh my God, is that guy dead? And then you see him writhing around and you're like, all right, he's in pain, but he's moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could not The stunts in this are fucking insane.
They're wild, yeah.
Because you would never see them in a movie these days because it would all be CGI.
Yes.
And you would never see them because they're clearly hitting like concrete and ground from like several story falls. And there can't be pads the way that it's shot.
Exactly.
Unless they're padded up. But I mean, that's still minimal at best.
Yeah.
And these guys are getting wrecked. And much like American Jackie Chan movies with Chris Tucker, this movie featured a post-credits blooper reel, which some of the bloopers were just having like stuntmen being carried to ambulances in a lot of pain. I was like, Jackie, who is also the director of this movie, it's like, Jackie, that's not a blooper, that's a lawsuit.
Not in the 80s. There's a lot of things.
Not in the 80s in Hong Kong.
There's like a lot of things that really date this movie to the 80s. Like within the first 5 minutes, Jackie Chan, in order to get this chick shut up, slaps the sunglasses right off her face.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He also later makes a rape joke. So there's a like prolonged rape joke.
Yeah. So that was 1985, Hong Kong. I mean,
warning, those are two things. There is some violence against women, even by Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
I think he only slaps her once, but
I mean, there's
some
hysterical.
Yeah.
She was hysterical.
You got to slap the crazy out of him.
Yeah.
But then there is some violence against women, but it's the bad guys at the end.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are getting an equal amount of violence done to them. So it kind of all works out. But yeah, there is a prolonged rape joke by Jackie Chan. And it's just like, wow, this is, ooh, Jackie.
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah. I mean, but as a whole, movie's great. The movie stands up.
Yes.
The pacing is fun. Story's fine. The movie's self-aware. It knows that it's kind of dramatic, so it doesn't take itself too seriously. So there are really great breaks between a lot of the action where there's like even like physical comedy and slapstick. Like
Jackie's
very
so
kung
funny.
fu, but so it's not like Jim Carrey. It's not like weird faces.
I don't know why I thought this was going to be a serious movie, but when I started watching it, like, it's fairly serious opening up, and then there's this wild scene in which I won't spoil for anyone, because seriously, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Police Story,
it's so fun.
The first 15 minutes you're just going to be like, wait, what? Wait, what?
Remember when that dude shoots that dude and they just like pan to his crotch?
Yep.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, there's a lot of
legit.
There's some crazy shit going on. But no, so the first 15 minutes will hook you like it did me. But then there is legit parts where I was like laughing out loud to myself. I think in part because I just didn't expect it to be funny. It's called Police Story, not like Rush Hour.
Right.
Not that Rush Hour is a particularly funny name, but like, I don't know why I didn't think it would be funny, because all of Jackie Chan's American movies have comedy in them, like anyone that I've seen. And he does it spectacularly. There's the Jackie being silly kind of stuff, which he does, throughout all of his American filmography. And then there's, like you were talking about, the physical comedy of like him getting a nut shot, or, him getting tied up by phones, or him eating erasers. Like there's just so much goofy
trying to act
shit
like he's fighting a guy who's passed out.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That
great.
Scene was amazing. Because he's making it kind of look like the guy is fighting him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, Jackie Chan is a master of his physicality, and he can use it to both bring you a kick-ass fucking action scene, like the mall scene at the end of this movie,
which is so excellently choreographed.
Unbelievable. And that's all, again, that's Jackie Chan choreographing that. That's Jackie Chan directing it, and it's Jackie Chan doing all the stunts. But then he can also bring that physical comedy into it too. And like I told my coworkers, like, you have to read this movie, because I don't know if there's a dub, but I don't like listening to dubs most of the time anyway. No offense to your hard work in Police Story 2.
It wasn't that hard. I was hungover.
Oh wait, when haven't you been hungover? but I gotta say, like, you don't have to read this movie even without the dub because everything's on the screen. Like,
Right.
you know what's going on. The visual language is so obscenely clear. Um, that it's a credit to Jackie Chan that in 1985 that he was at the top of his game and he had barely made any waves in America at that point. And this was one of the first things that got him attention in the West, and for obvious and good
Right.
reasons.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to talk about here, because we're talking about all the action sequences and like the very like kind of physical elements of the movie, but like the writing is fun, and
Yeah.
it's sort of like fun and fresh in a way that like Red Notice, which I just watched, like was not.
Yeah.
There's like really excellent use of different like tropes. This is one of those movies where in order to prove one's own innocence, one has to go and commit a series of escalating crimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
But
whole
once
third
you
act of this
prove
movie.
once you prove that the first thing you were accused of is not you, then everything else goes away,
It's
as is
called the
tradition in this movie.
Rittenhouse defense.
Yes.
Yeah, no, yeah, there's whole sorts of like logical leaps that you just have to go with, but you don't mind going with them at all because it's a
Right.
silly, crazy, action-packed movie, and you're just like, all right, they're just trying to get to the next action sequence or the next comedy bit, and I'm for it. If you're gonna speed up the talky parts just to get to another amazing, pushing someone through like 9 plate glass windows, like,
I don't think
sure,
they were
yeah,
played like yeah, I think those were legit windows. I think those guys got really injured doing that.
they might have been. They in the credits of this movie credited every single store and like shop that they broke, and
Yeah.
it was most of the credits. And there were like 40 people in like several action scenes. So yeah, they were breaking a lot of stuff in a real mall in Hong Kong somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, just really funny. The scene where he like kind of gets demoted to like a farming outpost police office.
Yes.
He steps in like cow shit and he starts doing like
He
a Michael
moonwalks.
Jackson dance, and he just
Yeah, he
like plays it
moonwalks.
off like he was just trying to get shit off of his shoe. And then there's the phone scene where he's like answering 9 phones. Yeah, I mean, it's this movie was, it has parts of like, there's DNA in this that lead directly to something like Rush Hour. um there's DNA in this that is also like, I mean, this is also the birth of any sort of like mainstream kung fu action movie that you would see out there. But there's just all of these funny, silly little like comedic bits that are perfect. Like, now that I think about it, are perfectly Jackie Chan, but like, you just don't get in most action movies that are willing to do this hardcore of stunts.
And for anybody too that really likes this style of film, like Police Story is so central to Hong Kong cinema, both like in how it's presented, like the types of very quick and sort of dramatic movements of the characters, and also of like the camera. Those sorts of things are very typical of Hong Kong cinema, but all you really have to do to explore is to go through the cast and see what else they were in. So cast of this movie is pretty central to like Hong Kong movies in the 80s. Um, but how would you compare Police Story to Jackie Chan's American output? So let's first say Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights.
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever seen those films. So,
Wow.
wow, I know. Uh, but in comparison to the Rush Hour films, which is what I mean, it's a cop story.
Yep.
Rush Hour adds fish out of water to it,
Right.
and Chris Tucker screaming. Um, but this feels very of a piece of Rush Hour.
For sure. They were very, very much thinking about how to take Rush Hour or how to take Police Story and Americanize it, which is
Yeah.
unnecessary.
No, it's not
Yeah. No, I
necessary,
said it's
but
unnecessary. I
yeah.
think Police Story is fine for an American
Oh yeah.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think what you got by Americanizing it was two of the best like action comedies of the 90s. So,
Yeah.
you know, you could do worse. I think this film is great. And
Yeah.
you again, if you like Rush Hour movies and you like Kung Fu or you like one or the other, like watch this fucking movie because it's fucking amazing. Like the practical stunts are out of this world.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, I just kept yelling at my TV, like, "What the fuck is happening?" Even in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it feels a little unpolished in, like I said, the talky parts. Like
Yeah.
when he's dealing with his girlfriend, like the girlfriend doesn't have a character other than she just constantly misunderstands Jackie Chan and then gets mad at him and leaves. And then in the next scene, she's back with him in order to do the same thing, completely misunderstand Jackie and then get mad and leave.
Yeah. They're
And
like
it's
Peter
like,
Sellers gags. Like,
yeah.
almost.
And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, I get it. Like, we don't have to do this every 15 minutes. Reintroduce the girlfriend, have her misunderstand something, and then get mad and leave.
Right.
So yeah, like that stuff is pretty weak. The getting from scene to scene is pretty weak. Like the bad guy is paper thin.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a drug dealer.
Yeah, he's just money.
I guess. But and also like at one point Jackie's like, "You're just gonna sell those people heroin powder," and it's like, "Oh, Jackie,
Yeah, heroin powder.
No one calls it that, Jackie."
Yeah,
like,
narc. All right, narc.
You're just gonna go smoke your weeds, aren't you? It's like, what? Stop! No one talks like that. Yeah. So it tells on itself a little bit that it's not. Yeah, I almost said it's not well researched. That's not what it is. It's just it's poorly written in the parts where
it's scrappy.
Jackie isn't an expert. Because Jackie's an expert at fight scenes and Jackie is clearly an expert at physical comedy.
Right.
And if we're not doing one of those two things, it kind of stutters and fits and starts. It doesn't drag the movie down because the movie kind of knows that it's not great at those, so it just kind of speeds it along.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is,
and I think that's where a movie like Rush Hour 2, gets it a little bit better, a little bit tighter. Is it just goes from point A to point B faster, and it varies more in between the physical comedy and the action scenes. There's just a little bit more variety in what that movie either chose to do or can do, because when you bring in culture clash, you can have a little bit more you can throw around a few more ideas in between action scenes. So yeah, I mean, this, had it been in English, this would have been a box office smash
for sure.
And if its release in America obviously got Jackie well enough known that he started to be able to transition to Hollywood films. So obviously it was a success in that measure as well. But yeah, as a standalone movie, this is it was an hour 40.
Yep.
One of the tightest movies we watched in a long time.
I agree with that for sure.
And just really, really fun to watch. Well, Mike, I also had the opportunity to play a little catch up this week on Disney's Shang Chi.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Which I watched earlier in the week, and then the other night I watched Police Story, and I thought maybe they would be of a piece.
Racist question mark?
Well, because this is the first Kung Fu Marvel movie, and
sure.
I knew Police Story was a Kung Fu movie.
Sure.
Moral of the story, they are not of a piece.
No.
Shang-Chi was fine. I think the action scenes were pretty cool, and I think Shang-Chi for me suffered from two things. Marvel bloat was way too long. I didn't need a giant imaginary dragon fight scene at the end.
Yeah, that was a big fight scene.
It was, and it kept going.
It did.
And I think Shang-Chi suffered from something that a lot of movies are going to be suffering from for the next couple of years, in that large swaths of this movie felt like it was an animated movie. And I think that's because COVID restrictions. And so instead of having 4 cars pull into an open field, they just went to ILM or Weta Digital and were like, draw this up for us. And, it's good. It's really good. There are effects, but in, 4K definition, it just doesn't hold up to reality yet. And the beginning of this movie, Shang-Chi has a really cool fight scene in a bus, which everybody is probably
I love that bus scene.
Yeah, everybody has at least seen parts of in advertisements and whatnot. If you haven't seen the movie yet. And that's great. And the fight scenes in this are really cool when it's just people, punching and kicking each other. They really do kind of figure out a way to, not to the level of Hong Kong in the 80s, but to a really good level, allow the, keep calm with the camera and just allow the kung fu to be the star of those scenes.
Right.
Yeah. So they do a really great job with that. And that was cool. And that's so different for Marvel, just having a guy punching people instead of just like doing weird shit with his hand and then like laser beams shoot out. So I liked that, but yeah, it was a little bloated, and it just, the beginning of this movie just felt like it was a fucking Pixar movie to me because of all the CGI. So other than that, yeah, that's kind of where the connections to Police Story ends as far as I can tell. But a decent Marvel movie.
I mean, I think one of the things I liked, and I felt like Shang-Chi did this in the same way that what's it called, that Shazam did.
Yeah.
And they're trying to, I thought, draw on this like 90s fantasy aesthetic. Which was,
you're talking about Kazam with Shaq, right?
No, I'm talking. Yeah, I would love to see. I would love to see that movie remade as like a gigantic franchise, still with Shaq
again.
Yeah, still with Shaq.
Hey, I'm a genie, but I'm pretty tired, so you guys go. You fix that. I'm gonna stay right here.
What if it was like
I got bad knees.
Okay, what if it wasn't Shaq? What if it was like Mark Ruffalo? Like Mark Ruffalo. You're a genie?
They just stretch him to 7 feet tall.
Yeah. But it's just like normal Mark Ruffalo. He's like not acting.
Yeah, why does Mark Ruffalo have to be 7 feet tall to be a genie? It's like, he does. Just deal with it. What does he come out of if he doesn't come out of a boombox? Does he come out of an iPad?
Mark Ruffalo would totally come out of an iPad.
No, Mark Ruffalo would come out of an Amazon Kindle.
Or like
Mark, I didn't call on you. I just was trying to swipe it to see what time it was. He's like, all right, I'll go back in the Kindle.
So I felt like it was drawing on that kind of tradition, that sort of like over the top visual tradition. And so I was okay with some of the more like kind of fantasy focused sequences because I felt like it was going there. I think Simu Liu as a frontman, I think, is like very charismatic. I
thought he was really good.
I liked him as an actor, and at least like as a superhero actor. And I liked him. I thought he held his own in like a lot of the fight sequences. He had to like learn a lot of that stuff for the movie. But he doesn't really seem at any point to be too, wooden or anything. He's really got it.
If you told me he had a background in, gymnastics or martial arts or something, I would totally believe you.
Yeah, because you're racist and he's Asian.
I said I guess gymnastics is. I don't know. What else are you have to be really flexible in and be able to jump and shit?
I mean, as far as I can tell,
gymnastics and karate.
Yoga.
You're not jumping in yoga. Yoga's pretty chill. You are stretchy though.
Some types of extreme porn.
If you told me he had a background in extreme porn, I'd believe you because some of those kicks were pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
He wasn't always an actor. He could have had an OnlyFans.
Star before. I also thought Aquafina. Aquafina, who
she was
I
fun.
haven't seen in much. She was great.
Yeah,
I was worried.
Casting was good.
Yeah, I was worried a little bit about overexposure for her character, but they just used her the right amount.
Yeah, casting. I mean, it's Marvel casting, which is always like pretty dead on.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Eternals yet, so I can't complain about that one.
Yeah, I don't think the acting is the problem with Eternals. Everybody seems to just be like, it's too many characters.
Okay, sure.
Is a big problem, trying to introduce 10 people in one movie.
Yeah.
And it's really like 11 people in one movie. But yeah, I mean, that's why I haven't seen that. But yeah, we decided to do Police Story last week, and then I saw Shang Chi was coming out, and I thought, hey, there's a theme: karate movies, then and now.
Perfect.
And,
well done.
Yeah. So I watched a whole mess of karate this week, and I if I'm gonna recommend Shang-Chi or Police Story, I'm going Police Story. But
if I had to pick one, I would pick Police Story. Yeah.
All right, Mike. Well, that was the first half, the karate half. So let's take a quick little break, and we'll be right back with more. Next week on Subject to Blackout. Now that we're past Thanksgiving, Mike and I have had some time to review Season 1 of Netflix's live-action version of Cowboy Bebop. As we discussed on our Cowboy Bebop anime pod, Mike and I were both very excited and intrigued by the prospects of this new version led by John Cho. Without giving too much away, I can say that Jazz is still a heavy influence, if not a character, in the updated series, and while they remix some storylines and ideas from the anime and pepper in a new, unique cinematic look, this new version is still very much Cowboy Bebop. And while personal lives and holidays have gotten in the way of a regular release of this podcast recently, rest assured, Mike and I have plans to release at least a couple of mainline podcasts this December, as well as one soccer special that should be released sometime within the next week. So join us, won't you, as we discuss Cowboy Bebop next week on Subject to Blackout. All right, Mike, we just talked about Police Story and a little bit more about Shang-Chi. Has there been anything else that you have been watching or listening to or otherwise consuming pop culturally this week?
I watched Red Notice, which is the big movie on Netflix. Watch that one.
Bring this up. Yeah. Did you? What were your thoughts on Red Notice? Because I have not watched Netflix's biggest opening ever. They claim.
Yeah, that movie.
Maybe I'm the only person, but I did not watch this.
It was bad. That movie sucked aggressively.
It looked kind of really bad.
I mean, I like The Rock as a person, oftentimes in his roles.
Yeah.
But this movie underscores this quote I heard about The Rock that I love and I've kept with me. But he makes bad movies good. He makes good movies good, and he makes great movies good. He's like a great equalizer. So do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's hard to argue otherwise.
He's always there, and you're like, oh, this is all right. It's The Rock.
It's a Rock movie.
Great. So
I think The Rock. Your point is valid. I don't think he's been in great works.
Yeah.
Like even Jason Momoa was in Dune, and he's like, hey, as long as I don't fuck this up, I'm going to be in Dune for 25 minutes.
Right.
And he was in Dune for 25 minutes, and he was perfectly fine. And if The Rock had played that role,
he would have been fine.
I think he would have been fine too. Maybe even a little bit more gravitas with him.
Maybe. But he's big.
But he just doesn't. He has the Michael Fassbender issue where his agent doesn't know how to find him good work. Because Michael Fassbender is a great actor, and he's never in anything good ever.
Yeah. No, the thing about this movie was they're like, what? Let's just find 3 actors who are always themselves in every single movie.
Yeah, that's
true. All right, Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot playing hot and right,
She's playing tits in a dress. Sorry.
like she was like sick in the first Wonder Woman, and they were like, you know what? Can you be less impressive and be just hot?
What if you're
Call
really
it Wonder
hung
Woman
up on a
1984.
guy?
Yeah. So
What if you allow your dead boyfriend to take over someone else's body and then rape that person? And you're like, no, but Gal Gadot,
great.
Gal Gadot, sorry.
Yeah, let's write it up.
Yes. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Gal Gadot is hot, and then Dwayne The Rock Johnson as Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So like the plot's inane, but like that can be okay. Like, you know, I'll sit down and watch a National Treasure just to watch Nicolas Cage wig out about American history.
We gotta find the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, and just have also sometimes John Voight also wig out. So like I'm fine with the premise of like, you know, like grand escapes, adventure, intrigue, Nazi gold, whatever. So this movie attempts to combine a prison escape movie with a heist Ocean's 11 style movie with Indiana Jones with that's pretty much it. No, wait. With Ryan Reynolds is in it as Ryan Reynolds, so I'll say with Van Wilder. And it sucks. It really sucks. Writing's terrible. The other thing, the writing is just like Police Story is way better than this. Writing's terrible. It's just like
but is the writing good?
It's like someone stitched together a bunch of one-liners, and they're like, "Oh no, you do one-liner." So,
like, how Netflix has this ability to just throw money at any project, and I feel like 95% of their movies that they make are just hot trash.
Yeah,
and I
have a theory.
You would think their misses would average a lower percentage than 95%.
Right.
Just by accident. Just by giving the right person a decent budget, like and hoping that they can, make something work. But like it's kind of like I was recently talking to someone about A24, and they're like, well, they have sort of an aesthetic. And it's like, A24 doesn't have an aesthetic.
Right.
They buy made films.
Right.
They can't have an aesthetic.
Yeah.
That they just have a couple of people's tastes. And if you like the movies, if you like the movies they like and can buy, then you'll like A24 movies.
Right.
They look very different. They are very different in themes, in tone, in cinematography, but they're all like a certain quality because they have good taste as a company. And Netflix just straight up fucking doesn't. Like, they have these things that every once in a while hit. Orange is the New Black was a hit pretty much right away.
Yep.
Stranger Things was kind of an out of nowhere hit.
Right.
Tiger King, out of nowhere hit. Not that that's good taste or anything, but like it's like the stuff they don't expect to do well outperforms their expectations for these blockbusters like Bird Box and stuff, which even that was kind of like out of the blue. I don't know. I just feel
movie.
like a lot.
I liked it. It was a weird movie.
Yeah, I just feel like a lot of what they try to put out there, it looks like trashy, like Michael Bay wannabe stuff. And then they got in bed with actual Michael Bay
to make Six Underground, which was also with Ryan Reynolds, which also sucked.
Yeah.
That was something that was really interesting about Red Notice, is that nobody in the heist did parkour. So it couldn't have been Michael Bay making it
How
because
do you even heist?
there wasn't one guy with like a South London accent that does parkour, and that's like, oh, what does he do? Oh, well, he like jumps over trash cans in a weird way. We'll need him. We'll need him.
Don't you worry, Charlie Brown. I'm gonna go get in it.
Yeah, look at the way he jumps over that dumpster. We need him. So
he learned that in Chelsea.
So like that, yeah. So that sucked. And then the other thing about it, among the other things about it that completely sucked, was so much of it was filmed in front of green screens, and the lighting is so inconsistent with the backgrounds that you're kind of like, it's obvious you're not in any of these locations. And some of them were even just sort of like outside. Like, why did that have to be a green screen? Like, we gotta like outside.
We gotta come up with a name for that, because I think a lot of that, especially like the outside shit, is COVID related.
Yeah.
In that it's just easier to stick 4 people in a room with a camera. Yeah. So I don't know if that's COVID cinema or COVID screening, but that's exactly what I'm talking about with Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
Or Shang-Chi, which is just like, why are those cars CGI? They're not shooting rockets. They're just fucking cars. They're not exploding. They're not doing anything. They're just driving into a field, and you CGI'd those cars.
You're gonna find out in like 8 years that they were Transformers the whole time.
I could tell, because one of them was bright yellow, and he was speaking in the songs on his radio.
Yeah, and Shia LaBeouf was screaming at it.
Just do it! Yeah, that's unfortunate. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of that green screening stuff. I actually, before we jumped on here earlier, I was watching a video about how Dune was filmed, and they didn't use blue or green screens, and they shot all of their outdoor footage outdoors. And so what they would do, instead of like building giant sets outside,
right,
they would use sand colored screens
instead
of green and blue.
Makes sense.
And so the colors reflecting off of the characters looked
sandy,
like the environment, so the skin tone colors were much more natural, and it was much harder to tell that was like,
that's true. I didn't know
those sets were real sets.
That's smart.
They all looked real.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what a creative, smart director does, is
Sure.
he finds workarounds in even COVID times, and yeah, Marvel's got a sort of production line sort of philosophy to their movies, so they're gonna do what they do and know what to do, and that's blue and green screens. And yeah, Netflix, I think I'd like to grant their issues with blue screening to COVID, but it might just be that Red Notice fucking sucked.
It sucked,
and that's the beginning and end of it. I watched a movie this week, which I had never heard of before. I watched it, called Coherence.
Okay.
I watched it on Amazon Prime. It's starring no one you've heard of, and directed by a nobody.
It's so underground. It's so hip.
But it wasn't hip or anything. I follow a podcast that watches a sci-fi movie every weekend on Twitch, and this was the sci-fi movie. And I won't get into the plot, because I think it's worth watching. It's not a great movie.
Sure.
It's a pretty good movie with a really, really cool
It raises
concept.
Questions. Okay. Like
really
Primer.
cool concept. I was gonna say,
okay,
it feels very Primery until all of the sudden it doesn't.
Okay, fair enough.
Right at the end, where they're like, "Hey, let's end the movie in the next 15 minutes."
Sure.
And they do. But yeah, Primer asks some real questions and stuff, and this story starts asking them and like almost gets to finish asking them, and then is like, "Listen, it's time for us to go, so we're just gonna wrap this up." But yeah, Coherence, again on Amazon Prime, at least, from 2013. The first 10 to 15 minutes are a little hard to get into. I guess there wasn't really a script for most of this movie. It was just like, plot points. It was like a bunch of actor friends who got together and made this.
Cool.
And
I like that kind of
so
stuff.
they were told in scenes like, hey, you have to bring up this, or you have to bring up this. So like the first couple of scenes are introductory, and it's just kind of like actory people being actory people.
Sure.
But once they actually have like plot points to hit, the movie really gets going and starts making you kind of guess what's going on and figuring stuff out. So it's a movie I would highly recommend.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check that out.
One other thing that I have finally done this week, is I am current with Apple TV Plus's Foundation again.
Oh, thank God.
So I know you were concerned.
Yeah. How's it going? Did you have to suffer through it? Because I hope so.
No.
I hope it sucked.
I was suffering through episods 1 through 5.
I don't know where that came from. That was you really
fucking hate this.
Yeah, that was a little bit much. I think it's because of the sake. I don't know.
It's getting into you. Episodes 1 through 5 I was watching as weekly releases, and that was giving me time to think about the giant plot holes that that this show either doesn't care enough to fill in, or is too stupid to realize they're doing, or a third point, which I don't think is even possible, but I will give them, the open ending for, and I will say maybe they will fill in some of those plot holes in the final episode of the season, which drops this evening.
Also, fourth possible point, based on my viewing of Red Notice, they assume that the audience is stupid enough not to care, or disengaged enough not to notice.
That is a possibility with most works. I don't think that's a possibility with this work.
Okay.
I think the most likely are they're hoping you don't. They don't care enough to fix the plot holes, and they're just like, it's a cool thing, so it doesn't matter that it's breaking a thing we said like 30 minutes ago.
Yep.
Or they're just, as a collective, a group of bad writers who are missing the fact that they're just making giant fucking stupid decisions.
Yeah. I think they're bad writers.
Just contradictory decisions. Yes. And also you pointed out the math thing, and that happened in episode 5 again, where they were like, math. And I was like, oh, God damn
exponents.
Pythagorean theorem. And I'm just like, God damn it, Mike.
I had a dream about.
I think I would have thought about this. Yeah. What even is N? At one point, Jared Harris was just like, solve for X, child. He didn't say that. But there was a scene where one of the characters was like, math. And it just felt so skimming the surface and saying buzzwords. And I was like, God damn you, Mike. So I stopped watching for several weeks.
And then he was like, it's not your fault.
No, it wasn't.
My wife, she farted.
Jared Harris is not Robin Williams.
But the actress could be Matt Damon. She's good at math. Okay?
Don't do this to me, Mike. Not you, Mike.
It's not your fault.
Mike, stop it.
How about them apples?
Well, fucking do this to me, Mike.
Red Sox.
Worcester.
Harvard.
I'm a construction worker.
Boston.
I go to Dunkin' every single day. It's wicked good. Okay, so I watched episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9 in more of a binge fashion,
Sure.
and that makes the show much more tolerable because you don't have time. You don't have a week to sit and simmer with your thoughts of like, wait, didn't they say that this wasn't possible? And then they did a very similar thing. Because that's happened like 4 times, and I listened to a podcast that's dissecting it, and one of the guys is like, yeah, that was a problem for me. The other guy's like, well, what if we talk for 15 minutes and come up with a headcanon reason why that's okay? It's like, I don't want to work that hard. The show just shouldn't be fucking stupid.
This is also Foundation is the first novel and also the franchise predate that, well, not predate, but predate within science fiction, the sort of Dune style of just being like gigantic books that are just dense with information. Like each book itself is probably like around 200 pages. Like they're information rich, but they're not like,
and it's not lore building.
Right.
This isn't Game of Thrones.
Exactly.
Like you said, this isn't Dune.
Yeah, readers are not expected to sort of pay attention to the tiniest details. There's no there are Chekhov's guns, but they're not like these tiny minute things that you're awarded for paying attention to.
Yeah, and so from everything I've gleaned from listening to others who have read at least the first book, Foundation, the whole middle part of the series kind of skewed away from what was going on in that book. But we're kind of getting to we're basically at a major plot point again that's bringing us right back into the book, which kind of makes sense. Is again, it's a 200-page book that's about big ideas rather than minuscule plot points. So I understand that you would have to, during a season, if you want that to be the arc, the first book is the first season, then yeah, okay, sure, then you're gonna have to do some divergent stuff. The stuff that they're doing with the Empire is fucking really cool and really great and really well acted.
That's good.
And everything they're doing with the people who are on the Foundation planet is boring and lame, and there's plot holes left and right. And
that's a shame. That's exciting in the book. Yeah,
I know. And I think we're getting to a point where that's going to pick back up. But if you're going to watch Foundation, and I don't think you will, but if you are listening and are going to give Foundation the series a chance, I would say binge it.
Sure.
You don't have to watch 10 episodes in a row, but I would watch, 3 episodes a night for a couple of nights. And I think that will provide a better viewing experience. And just know that, like, this is not Game of Thrones quality television. Right. And it could get there. It absolutely could get there. It
seems desperate to be, but.
Yeah. And it seems like Apple TV Plus's, big swing for the fence to try to have a prestige sci-fi or fantasy show, much like Game of Thrones. But it just, for better or for worse, the showrunners of Game of Thrones were really, really, really good at adapting the material at hand, and that included creating plot lines out of whole cloth. That even George R.R. Martin was like, yeah, it's a really good idea, and it shit really works, and they were really good at adapting the books. And once they ran out of books, that's when the show went south. These guys for Foundation have a bunch of books, and
by Isaac
do not
Asimov.
appear good. Yeah, do not appear to be adapting the works in a way that is as a critical viewer of the show satisfying. So maybe turn your brain off and look at the cool stuff and focus on the Empire stuff, because that's really cool. But Foundation, it's okay. It's just okay. Watch Police Story over Foundation.
Police Story all the way for this episode.
Yeah, Police Story is better than everything else I've talked about this evening. So
me too. Yeah.
All right, Mike, do you have anything else that you've been maybe listening to or reading or playing?
That's it. That's been the week.
Did you get any Halo Infinite in the last couple days?
It crashes every time I get in there. So, and
that's unfortunate.
The
you
advice
on
an
old Xbox.
Yeah, the advice on the internet was download it again. And I was like, fuck you. I'm not going to download it again. You know what the fuck you're talking about. Download it again? That's what you tell people when you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So I'm not going to download it again.
I think you should download it.
I'm not going to do that. We'll just play it. We'll just play it later. And I can't get a new Xbox because
you can.
Scalpers in the pandemic fucked that.
Yeah, you can if you're willing to pay $1,000 or more for an Xbox.
I'm not.
But yeah. you have a hand-me-down Xbox. You can blame me.
I can play it on PC. I can play it on.
That's true.
I can play it on the computer.
That is true.
Okay, I'm gonna think about that. Anyway,
yeah, I got a few games of Halo Infinite, and it was fine. And I'm gonna be trash at that game for the first 6 months that we play it.
Yeah, we'll begin being trash tomorrow. It'll be great.
Woohoo! But the one thing last thing I wanted to talk about was I have sort of enjoyed this band Pinegrove for a while, and they recently released 2 singles, Alaska and Orange, off of a January upcoming album. And Alaska is kind of a bop, and Orange is kind of really great too, and it's
cool.
3/4 time, and it's about
like a waltz.
It's like a kind of punkish indie rock waltz about how the right in this country is ignoring all of the problems at the detriment to the world.
Cool.
And more excited to talk about how they're poning all of the left than actually doing anything to make anything better.
That's true.
And yeah, it's not often you hear a waltz that's a politically active waltz. So I've enjoyed those 2 songs off their upcoming album 1111. And I would say they're like Death Cab if Death Cab liked more punk rock growing up.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Cool.
He sounds very much like the guy from Death Cab.
Ben Gibbons.
Yes. Sure. I don't care. Death Cab guy. But yeah, so I've been listening to that and some.
Why don't you call him Cutie? You just went straight for Death Cab.
I don't know. I just always refer to Death Cab as Death Cab. I like cabs that are filled with death, Mike. That's what that says about me. And that's all it says about me. So yeah, that's what I've been listening to and playing. And next week, I think we might watch a movie. We at this point of recording, we haven't decided yet. But I know something that we're both going to be checking out tomorrow or this weekend on Netflix, and that will be the release of the brand new Cowboy Bebop live action.
Oh yeah, Michael has a whole sound system set up.
Yeah. Super excited for the music. The story is getting mixed reviews, so
whatever.
I'm there for it. I'm gonna watch.
I'm in it for the
unless
aesthetic.
It's really
yeah.
Unless it's really bad, I'm gonna watch the whole thing because I think that it sounds like it has a ton of potential. So.
Yeah. No. Let's crush that.
Looking forward to watching that and whatever movie we decide to watch, which you guys already know about because I put it in the ad in the middle. But that's it for this week. All right, for those of you listening along, you can head on over to subjecttoblackout.com, or you can reach out to us on any of our socials, including Instagram, Patreon, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on any of those. And lastly, you can find Mike on Instagram and Twitter at NameTakenPodcast. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Cheers, Sam.